May 3, 2007. Multiple witnesses see something that evening in Praia da Luz, Portugal. Some see a man carrying a child. Some see suspicious activity near apartment 5A. Some notice things that seem wrong. They give statements to police, describe what they saw, provide details about timing, location, descriptions. These witness statements become crucial evidence in the investigation. They're supposed to help establish what happened, who was involved, what the sequence of events was. But when you examine those witness statements closely, when you compare them to each other and to the official timeline, problems emerge. Descriptions that don't match, timings that conflict, details that contradict the accepted narrative. For 18 years, these witness statements have been analyzed, debated, questioned. Some witnesses saw things that support the official investigation direction. Others saw things that raise questions about that direction. And some witness accounts were seemingly dismissed or not pursued as thoroughly as they could have been. Understanding what witnesses actually saw, what they told police, and how those statements align or don't align with the official story is crucial to understanding this case, because witnesses are supposed to provide independent verification of events. When their accounts contradict each other or contradict the official timeline, it creates investigative problems that remain unresolved 18 years later. This isn't about creating conspiracy theories. This is about examining documented witness statements that exist in the case file, about understanding what multiple people said they saw that evening and in the days before, about analyzing why some witness accounts were pursued aggressively while others seemingly weren't, about recognizing that when witnesses see different things or describe events differently, someone's account is more accurate than others. And determining whose account is most reliable becomes crucial to understanding what actually happened. Before we go any further, I need to know something. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your location in the comments. This case has generated analysis from people worldwide for 18 years. I want to see how many are still examining the witness evidence. And if you believe that witness statements matter in investigations, that examining contradictions between accounts is important, that understanding what people actually saw versus what the official narrative claims is crucial to finding truth, subscribe to Cold Case right now. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and smash that like button, because it pushes this story to more people who need to hear it. We specialize in cases where examining the documented evidence reveals inconsistencies that matter, where witness statements contain information that raises questions about official conclusions. This case has multiple witnesses who saw things that evening. Their statements don't all align. Some contradict each other. Some contradict the timeline. And understanding those contradictions is essential to understanding what happened. Now let's dive into what the key witnesses actually saw, what they told police, how their accounts differ, and why those differences matter 18 years later. Understanding the witness evidence requires understanding who the key witnesses are. First category, witnesses who saw a man carrying a child that evening. Multiple people reported seeing this at different times, in different locations, with different descriptions of the man and the child. These sightings are significant because if someone took the girl from the apartment, they likely had to carry her at some point. A witness seeing a man carrying a child at the right time in the right location could be seeing the abduction in progress. Second category, witnesses who saw suspicious activity around apartment 5A. People who noticed someone lurking, someone watching, someone acting strangely. These witnesses might have seen reconnaissance or preparation before the event. Or they might have seen the perpetrator, or they might have seen completely unrelated activity that happens to seem suspicious in retrospect. Third category, witnesses from the vacation group itself, the people who were at dinner with the family, who did the checking rounds, who were there when the alarm was raised. Their statements about timing, about what they saw during checks, about the sequence of events, these are crucial to establishing the timeline. But as we discussed in the previous video, those statements contain inconsistencies. Fourth category, resort staff and other guests. People who saw the family during the vacation, who might have noticed someone watching them, who might have information about activity in the days before the disappearance. These witnesses provide context about whether this was a crime of opportunity or something planned. Let's start with the most significant witness category: those who saw a man carrying a child. The first major sighting was reported by one of the vacation group members. At approximately 9:15 p.m. on May 3rd, this person was walking back from checking on their own children. They crossed paths near apartment 5A. According to their statement, they saw a man walking, carrying what appeared to be a child. The man was walking away from the apartment complex, moving with purpose. The witness didn't think much of it at the time, assumed it was a father carrying his sleeping child home from somewhere. Only later, after the alarm was raised, did this witness realize the potential significance. The description given: man approximately 35 to 40 years old, medium build, wearing dark clothing, carrying a child in pajamas. The child appeared to be sleeping. The man was walking determinedly, not running. Not acting suspiciously, just walking like someone with a destination in mind. The timing of this sighting is crucial. 9:15 p.m., right in the middle of the critical window we discussed in the timeline video, after the 9 p.m. check by the father, before the 9:30 discovery by the mother. If this sighting is accurate, and if this was the abductor, it means the taking happened between 9 p.m. and 9:15. Extremely narrow window. But there's a problem with this sighting. The witness initially wasn't certain about the time. Said it might have been 9:15, or maybe 9:10, or 9:20. The uncertainty about timing affects how this sighting fits into the timeline. And there's another problem. The description of the man and child doesn't match other sightings. Other witnesses saw a man carrying a child, but described him differently. Quick question before we continue. What time is it where you are right now? Let us know in the comments. I'm curious how many people are watching this late at night, analyzing witness statements from 18 years ago. Let me break down the second major sighting. A couple staying at the resort, not connected to the vacation group, reported seeing a man carrying a child at approximately 9:55 p.m., almost an hour after the first sighting. This couple was walking back to their apartment. They passed a man walking in the opposite direction, carrying a child. The child appeared to be sleeping or unconscious. The man was moving quickly but not running. The couple noticed because it seemed late for a child to be out, but they didn't think it was necessarily suspicious. Parents sometimes carry sleeping children. Only after hearing about the disappearance did they report what they'd seen. The description from this couple is more detailed. They got a better look. The man was described as 35 to 40 years old, 5 feet 10 inches tall, slim build, dark hair, wearing beige trousers and a dark jacket. The child appeared to be a young girl, wearing light-colored pajamas, blonde hair. The couple was certain about what they saw, certain about the time because they checked their watch, certain about the description because they discussed it immediately after passing the man, remarking that it was late for a child to be out. This sighting is significant because of the timing. 9:55 p.m. That's 25 minutes after the mother discovered the girl was missing. 25 minutes into the alarm being raised and people searching. If this sighting is accurate, if this was the abductor, he was still in the area almost half an hour after the disappearance was discovered, moving through the resort with a child while people were searching. That's either extremely bold, or suggests the searchers weren't covering the area effectively, or suggests this might not have been the abductor. But here's where the contradiction emerges. The description from this couple doesn't match the description from the 9:15 sighting. Different clothing, different build, different hair color in some retellings. Either these are two different men carrying children at different times, or one or both witnesses are mistaken about what they saw, or one sighting is the abductor and the other is an innocent person carrying their own child. Determining which is which becomes crucial. The investigation focused heavily on the 9:15 sighting initially. That timing fit perfectly with the timeline. After the father's check, before the mother's discovery, that would be the window when the taking happened. The 9:15 witness was from the vacation group, known to investigators, considered reliable. But when the couple came forward with the 9:55 sighting, questions emerged. Why would the abductor still be in the area almost an hour after taking the child? Why would he be moving through the resort instead of getting away quickly? The 9:55 sighting didn't fit as well with assumptions about how an abduction would proceed. But there's a third sighting. A family staying near the resort reported seeing a man carrying a child on a nearby street at approximately 10 p.m. They were driving home, saw a man on the side of the road, carrying what appeared to be a child. The man was walking quickly. The child appeared limp. The family thought it was odd but didn't stop. Only later, after hearing about the case, did they connect what they'd seen with the disappearance. This family provided a description. The man was described as late 30s, dark hair, medium build, wearing casual clothes. The child appeared to be wearing pajamas. 3 separate sightings of men carrying children. 9:15 p.m., 9:55 p.m., 10 p.m. 3 different locations within the resort area and nearby streets. 3 somewhat different descriptions. All on the same night, a child went missing. The question becomes, are any of these sightings the actual abduction? Are all 3 innocent coincidences of fathers carrying their own sleeping children? Is one the abduction and the others unrelated? Without definitive evidence connecting any sighting to the missing girl, investigators had to evaluate which seemed most likely. The investigation ultimately created composite sketches based on the witness descriptions. Different sketches from different sightings. These sketches were released to the public, circulated internationally, generated thousands of tips. But they also generated confusion because the different sketches didn't look like the same person. If witnesses saw the same man at different times, the sketches should be similar. The fact that they weren't suggested either witnesses saw different men or their descriptions were influenced by other factors that reduced accuracy. If you're finding this valuable, if you're learning things about witness evidence that you didn't know before, hit that like button. Every like tells YouTube's algorithm that this story matters, that examining witness statements matters, that understanding contradictions in testimony is important. Your engagement helps us bring attention to cases where witness evidence raises questions. So like, comment, share. Now let's talk about the second category of witnesses. Those who reported suspicious activity before May 3rd. Multiple witnesses came forward saying they'd seen a man watching the family in the days before the disappearance, lurking near the apartment, seeming to pay unusual attention to the children. These reports suggest the possibility of stalking or reconnaissance before a planned abduction. But these reports also came primarily after the disappearance was publicized. Memories influenced by knowing what happened. Details possibly enhanced by anxiety and fear. One witness reported seeing a man watching the family's apartment on May 2nd, the day before. This witness was another resort guest. They noticed a man standing near the apartments, seeming to watch, not doing anything specific, just standing and watching. The witness thought it was odd but didn't report it at the time because watching isn't a crime. Only after May 3rd did this witness connect the watching with the disappearance. The description given was vague. A man, medium height, medium build. Couldn't recall specific clothing or features, just remembered the watching behavior. Another witness reported seeing a man near the apartment complex on multiple occasions in the days before May 3rd. This witness lived locally, walked past the resort regularly, noticed a man who seemed out of place, loitering, not acting like a typical tourist. The witness mentioned this to police after hearing about the case. The description was similarly vague. Dark-haired man, casual clothes, nothing distinctive, just the sense that he didn't belong and was watching something or someone. These pre-disappearance sightings matter if they're accurate because they'd indicate planning, stalking, selecting a target, and preparing. But there's a problem with memories reported after the fact. Human memory is influenced by subsequent information. When you know a child was abducted, and then you try to remember if you saw anything unusual in the days before, your brain will search for anything that could be construed as unusual. Memories get enhanced, details get added, vague impressions become more certain. This doesn't mean the witnesses are lying. It means human memory isn't perfectly reliable, especially after the fact when there's motivation to remember something significant. The investigation tried to verify these sightings, asked other witnesses if they'd seen the same man, checked if there were any photos or videos from tourists that might capture someone lurking. Some corroboration existed. Multiple people reported seeing a suspicious man, but the descriptions were too vague to identify anyone specific. And without physical evidence connecting any specific person to lurking behavior, the sightings remained unverified leads rather than definitive evidence. Let me break down the third category, witnesses from the vacation group itself. We already discussed the 9/15 sighting by one of the group members, but there are other significant statements from this group that contain contradictions. One member stated they checked on the apartment around 9:30 p.m., walked past, noticed nothing unusual. Door closed, no sounds, everything seemed normal. But according to the official timeline, the mother discovered the disappearance at 9:30. If this group member walked past at the same time and saw nothing unusual, there's a timing problem. Either the times are wrong or the observations are wrong. Another group member stated they were at the restaurant the entire evening. Didn't leave, didn't do any checks. But cell phone records show calls made from locations away from the restaurant. Either the records are wrong or the statement about staying at the restaurant the entire time is inaccurate. These aren't necessarily intentional lies. Memory under stress is imperfect. But the inconsistencies matter because they affect the reliability of the timeline we discussed in the previous video. Resort staff provided statements about the family's vacation, when they saw them, what they observed, whether they noticed anyone paying unusual attention to the family. Most staff members reported nothing unusual. The family seemed like typical tourists. The children were well behaved. Nothing stood out as suspicious, but one staff member reported seeing a man asking questions about the family, what apartment they were in, what their routine was. This staff member thought it was odd at the time, but didn't report it because tourists sometimes ask about other guests they've met. Only after May 3rd did this seem potentially significant. The investigation interviewed this staff member extensively, asked for detailed description of the man asking questions, when it occurred, what exactly was asked. The staff member's description was somewhat vague, couldn't remember specific dates, thought it was sometime during the week before May 3rd. The man was described as European, well-dressed, spoke English with an accent, asked casual questions that seemed like normal tourist conversation, but in retrospect seemed like gathering information. Without more specific details or corroboration, this lead couldn't be pursued definitively. Fourth category, other witnesses who came forward after the case received international publicity. Hundreds of people reported seeing something potentially relevant, a man who looked like a composite sketch, a child who resembled the missing girl, suspicious activity weeks or months before. Most of these reports were investigated and determined to be mistaken identity, coincidence, or attention-seeking. But some reports seemed credible and were pursued seriously. One significant late report came from witnesses who said they saw a man acting suspiciously near the apartment complex on May 3rd around 7 p.m., before the family went to dinner, before the critical window. These witnesses described a man carrying what appeared to be photography equipment, setting up as if to take pictures, but seeming more interested in the apartments than in scenery. The witnesses were other tourists. They thought the man might be a professional photographer doing architectural photos. Didn't think much of it. Only months later, after seeing media coverage, did they connect what they'd seen with the case and report it. The investigation examined this report. If someone was photographing the apartments at 7 p.m., there might be photos showing the apartment, the family, or other relevant information. But the man was never identified. No photos surfaced. Without being able to locate the supposed photographer or verify the sighting, it remained an interesting but unverified lead. Before we wrap up, I want to know something. When witnesses give contradictory descriptions or timings, how do investigators determine which accounts are most reliable? What factors make one witness more credible than another? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Now let's talk about why these witness contradictions matter from an investigative standpoint. First, they create multiple possible scenarios. If the 9:15 sighting is accurate, the abduction happened early in the window. If the 9:55 sighting is accurate, the abductor was in the area much longer than expected. If the pre-disappearance lurking reports are accurate, this was planned. If they're not, it was opportunistic. Each scenario requires different investigative approaches and leads to different suspect profiles. Second, contradictions affect composite sketch reliability. When multiple witnesses describe different-looking men, creating sketches becomes problematic. Do you create one sketch trying to average the descriptions? Do you create multiple sketches representing different sightings? The investigation did the latter. Multiple sketches released. But this creates confusion. The public doesn't know which sketch to focus on. Tips come in for multiple different-looking people. Resources get spread across following up on sightings of men who look like different sketches. Third, witness contradictions enable alternative theories. When official evidence is ambiguous, when witnesses disagree, space opens for alternative interpretations. Some based on evidence, some based on speculation. But all enabled by the fact that witness testimony doesn't provide a clear, consistent picture of what happened. If all witnesses agreed on timing, description, and sequence of events, many alternative theories would be impossible. But because they don't agree, multiple interpretations remain plausible. Fourth, contradictions raise questions about why some witnesses were prioritized over others. The 9:15 sighting received intensive focus. That witness was interviewed repeatedly. Their description formed the basis for initial composite sketches and investigation direction. But the 9:55 witnesses were also certain about what they saw. Their timing was verified, their description was detailed. Why didn't their account receive equal weight? Understanding investigative prioritization decisions matters because it shows what assumptions investigators were making about how the crime occurred. The fundamental issue is that witness testimony is inherently unreliable in predictable ways. People see things from different angles, in different lighting, with different levels of attention. Memory degrades over time. Memory is influenced by subsequent information. Stress affects perception and recall. All of this means that even honest, well-intentioned witnesses can give accounts that differ from each other and from what actually happened. Recognizing these limitations is important for evaluating witness evidence. But it's also important to recognize that witness testimony is often all investigators have. In this case, there's minimal physical evidence, no definitive forensic evidence identifying a perpetrator. The witness sightings of men carrying children are the best leads available. Even if those sightings are contradictory, and even if memory limitations mean the descriptions might not be perfectly accurate, they're still valuable investigative tools. Following up on those leads, trying to identify the men described, attempting to verify or eliminate them as suspects, this is legitimate investigative work, even when the underlying witness evidence is imperfect. Let me break down what we can conclude from examining the witness evidence. First, multiple witnesses saw men carrying children on the evening of May 3rd. Whether any of these sightings was the actual abduction remains unknown. But the sightings are documented. The witnesses gave statements. The descriptions were recorded. Second, the sightings occurred at different times and in different locations. This creates timeline complexity. If the 9:15 sighting was the abduction, the 9:55 sighting was something else. If 9:55 was the abduction, the timeline we discussed in the previous video is even more problematic because it means the girl was taken much later than initially assumed. Third, some witnesses reported suspicious pre-disappearance activity, lurking, watching, photography. If these reports are accurate, they suggest planning and stalking. But many of these reports came after the fact. Memory influenced by knowing what happened. Details potentially enhanced. Without corroborating evidence, they remain unverified. Fourth, witnesses from the vacation group provided statements about the evening that contain inconsistencies with each other and with the official timeline. These aren't necessarily lies. Memory under extreme stress is imperfect. But the inconsistencies matter because they affect the reliability of the foundational timeline. Fifth, The investigation prioritized certain witness accounts over others. Decisions were made about which sightings seemed most credible or most likely to be relevant. Those decisions shaped investigation direction, shaped which composite sketches were created and emphasized, shaped which leads were pursued most aggressively. Understanding those prioritization decisions is important for understanding why the investigation proceeded the way it did. For 18 years, these witness statements have been analyzed, re-examined, debated. New witnesses have come forward. Old witnesses have been re-interviewed. Efforts have been made to reconcile contradictions and determine which accounts are most accurate, but fundamental disagreements remain. Different sightings at different times with different descriptions, pre-disappearance reports that can't be verified, group member statements that contain inconsistencies. And all of this creates an evidence picture that's complex and contradictory rather than clear and definitive. Understanding witness evidence in this case requires recognizing both its value and its limitations. Value. Witnesses saw things that evening that might be directly related to the abduction. Those sightings provide leads that can be investigated. Limitations. Witnesses disagree about what they saw. Memories are imperfect. Descriptions are influenced by stress, lighting, distance, and subsequent information. The result is evidence that's useful but not definitive, suggestive but not conclusive. In memory of a young girl who disappeared on May 3, 2007, witnesses saw things that night. They came forward. They tried to help. Their statements are part of the evidence. Imperfect evidence, contradictory evidence, but evidence that still matters because it's part of the effort to understand what happened. If this witness analysis was valuable to you, if you learned things about how witness evidence works and why contradictions matter, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Cold Case. We examine cases where the evidence tells a complex story, where understanding contradictions is crucial to understanding what happened, where witness testimony matters even when it's imperfect. Leave a comment with your thoughts about witness evidence. Which sighting do you think is most likely to be accurate? Why do witnesses see things so differently? How should investigators weigh contradictory accounts? Share this with anyone who follows this case. Anyone interested in how investigations work. Anyone who wants to understand why witness testimony is both valuable and problematic. Witnesses try to help, but human perception and memory have limitations. Those limitations affect how evidence should be interpreted. After 18 years, the witness evidence in this case still raises more questions than it answers. But examining those questions is how we move toward understanding what actually happened.